This is a save frog. They're scattered all around the world in Mother 3, and as you might guess, they save your game. The cool thing is, most save frogs aren't more than 5 minutes apart, so if you want to play this 8-chapter RPG in 8-minute play sessions, you totally can. And because the Mother games are packed with so much detail and little things to enjoy, it's kind of worth it to play this way. So that's what I'm doing. Playing Mother 3 step by step, frog by frog, and writing about everything I experience along the way. This might be the most unnecessarily long analysis ever written about a video game, but I'm loving every second of it, and I hope you will too. So, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Seeing as we are now 8 frogs in a who knows how many frogs journey, I think it's important for me to be honest with you. This post is going to meander. This post is going to have little to no organization. This post is going to feel a little bit lost. As the main writer and curator of the Frog by Frog blog, I'll at least take partial blame for this. I could have structured this post better. I could have outlined or planned out each section. I could have done a lot of things, but I didn't. But we also have to acknowledge Mother 3 itself as a culprit. As you know, I'm not allowed to save twice with the same frog, at least within the confines of a single chapter. So, for example, when I came across this little guy outside town square, I had no choice but to pass him up, even though my grip on my memories was starting to weaken. I'd forgotten. The frogs have been recording my memories this entire time. Without them, I just keep on walking, keep on looking, to see what I can see. I find myself thinking things like, who am I? Where am I? Without the frogs recording everything for me, I'm already starting to forget. Maybe I'm feeling so foggy because my session of gameplay was so long. I mean, it's not like nothing notable happened this time around. I'll definitely get to all that. But the truth is, despite some major plot developments, I did more seeing than doing, more playing than working, more walking than running. The main action of the day, really, was Flint and Boney going for a walk together, as the rest of the townsfolk split up to look for Hinawa and the kids. And I understand this is a little bit out of character for Flint. He would certainly never explore everywhere but the Sunshine Forest just to take a breather. He'd be out there checking behind every tree, inside every cave, on top of every cliffside, for his family. But the game did ask me my name, the name of the person playing the game. And today, the person playing the game didn't do much of anything, because I didn't have to. The newest frog was so far away, and there were so many NPCs to talk to, that I decided I wanted to take my time. So I walked along the beach, I opened some presents, I checked on Flint's sheep, I even decided to have my heroes stop at a cliff and do nothing for a little while, just to look far out, because that seemed like something they'd do. To clear their heads, maybe. To brainstorm in the storm. All in all, combining both my on-the-rails gameplay and my off-the-rails meandering, this has been by far my longest session of gameplay yet. While a lot of my playtime gets inflated because I stop to take notes so often, I still think I went for about 45 minutes this time around. If 2 posts ago I was complaining that there wasn't more Mother 3 to play, then I definitely have nothing to complain about this time. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't see a session this long until Chapter 4, when you're finally given more freedom in how you traverse the world. And like I said, I can't save twice with the same frog in the same chapter, so that padded the gameplay as well. And honestly, it was kind of nice. In the same way that playing in short sessions draws out the tension of the plot, playing in longer sessions helps me explore the setting in a way I normally never would. See, I knew there'd be no frogs nearby, and trust me, when you become hyper-aware of frogs and their relative positions, it can really hang over your head as you play. What is already a 7-minute session of gameplay can feel like a 60-second session of gameplay because you know the next frog is just around the corner. I even went looking for frogs just to see if there were any off the beaten path, but I went as far as Duster and Wes's house, and there were no frogs in sight. I did talk to a stray dog, but he wouldn't save my game. What I'm getting at is that when your brain is conditioned like mine to only enjoy a game for just a couple minutes, it's nice to take a walk, even when it's raining, even though the rest of the town is still looking for Hinawa and the kids, even though now more than ever, there is a bit of a hurry in Tasmally. For the moment, I decided to take my dog for a walk. I'm kind of reminded of playing Pokemon games when I was a kid. Back then, I often didn't play Pokemon to progress to the next town or to the next gym. Sometimes I just hadn't talked to enough NPCs or paid enough attention to the dialogue to make it to a town's gym leader. So I spent my time doing what any kid would do. I caught Pokemon. I probably had a PC of like 20 Pidgeys, but when you're a kid, you don't worry so much about how much time you've spent in a game. You still know how to play for the sake of playing. I think I unearthed a little bit of that feeling today by aimlessly walking around Tasmally in the rain. I imagined what Flint might be thinking, or what sense Boney might pick up to find Hinawa and the kids. I'd forgotten that video games, especially RPGs, encourage the player to use their imagination if you give them the space to. Sometimes you just need to take a break and take a walk. It also didn't hurt that the amazing Hard Rain was the background song for the majority of this session. Which, and I know I say this a lot, is by far one of my favorite tracks in the game. I'll say more about this song later on in the posts and how I think its introduction is amazing, but for now, I'll just say that I could listen to this song all day long. I'm listening to it while writing this sentence. It's got a bass line that just gives me chills every time I hear it. Okay, I can start to feel myself getting farther and farther away from the point, just as Lucas and Klaus are straying farther and farther from home. Let's rein this in. How did Boney join my party? How long did Flint sleep? Did he sleep at all? How were all the Tasmalians rallied together so quickly? I'll answer all of these questions and more, but I have just one thing to say first. Just like a few posts ago when I suggested giving my playstyle a try because of what it does for the tension of the story, I'll make the same plea once again here. I'm not saying that having Flint and Boney stand on a cliff is the same amount of fun as, say, fighting the flying mouse or running through the sunshine forest. And I'm not saying you need to walk around for 45 minutes taking notes to enjoy Mother 3 or anything like that. If you're one of those people who plays RPGs by fast forwarding through all the battles, I won't even chide you for that, even though it's definitely not my thing. What I'm saying though is that the change of pace is fun and it's different. A good different, I think. When I started this blog, I was interested in finding out what Shigesato Itoi really means when he says play a video game, because I think we can agree that he has never really meant just playing a game from start to finish. As we can observe in the Nintendo Dream interview, he definitely doesn't mean playing optimally, or playing quickly, or even playing by the rules. If you're smelling any hubris in my voice, don't worry, it's actually just hummus, and I have way too much respect for Itoi as a creator to claim that I, the frog by frog guy, have cracked his code, or that I am the best type of player, or anything like that. But I will say that going for that long walk with Flint and Boney, it at least made me feel like I'm on the path to a strong idea of something. The Mother games to me are kind of like toy boxes, and I think their heart isn't always found in going to the next objective, but in making sure you've pushed all the world's bells and whistles to have left no stone unturned. I mean, if you're always gunning to the next goal, you can entirely miss the bicycle in Earthbound. Bicycles are one of the things that make childhood special. For millions of people, there is no play, no childhood, and a world without bicycles. I think Itoi truly wants the player to have as many opportunities as possible to spark their imagination, to connect with the game in a way that feels personal. I was recently watching a video where a YouTuber named Fudge talked about something called ludonarrative dissonance, which he describes as a disconnect between a game's narrative and the things you can actually do in the game. I know this concept got really played out on YouTube from like 2017 to 2019, but you have to understand that at the time I wrote this post, it was a very new concept to me, so if your eyes are already rolling, please just hear me out on this. I promise I did not know that ludonarrative dissonance had become such a meme, so yeah, just apologies in advance for that, but back to the post. Fudge compares The Witcher 3 to Breath of the Wild, exploring how, even though The Witcher 3 has a good narrative and is full of great side quests, the best story you will ever get from The Witcher 3 is The Witcher 3's story. Breath of the Wild, on the other hand, crafts its world in such a way that each player can have a unique progression, their own narrative, experiencing a story that is constantly impacted by their own decisions. Every Breath of the Wild player has a "I remember the first time I" story, usually about some wild, unique way they discovered something in the game. And whether or not the discovery was truly wild or unique, what matters is that it felt that way. Breath of the Wild is so good at this. Honestly, I plan to talk about this concept a lot over my next few posts, and my short paragraph above is definitely an oversimplification, so please watch Fudge's video for full context. It's so good, and I'm sure you'll see why it especially interests me for this blog when he gets into personal storytelling, or opening up, when talking about video games. I'll say for now that his comparison between those two games reminded me a bit of Earthbound and Mother 3, with Mother 3 suffering from more ludonarrative dissonance, even though Earthbound is, in its own invisible ways, still at times an on-the-rails RPG. However, you can't deny that Earthbound's looser story structure, more difficult combat encounters, and larger world, at least on paper, allow for players to have more unique experiences, more of their own stories, throughout the course of the game. In other words, Earthbound's story doesn't always dictate the narrative the player will experience by playing Earthbound. Earthbound's villain, Gygas, has an active influence on the events of the game, and the secondary antagonist, Porky Minch, always finds ways to mess with the heroes, but the story rarely presses itself on the player. I'm not saying Earthbound has a freedom on the level of Breath of the Wild, but I do think Earthbound, even just in semblance, does a lot to put players into positions that feel unique and self-crafted, even if they only feel that way. But then there's the problem of Mother 3, isn't there? Even if you take a long walk with Flint and Boney, every player is going to experience the same Chapter 1. How do you stop and play in a game that seems to always push you forward? It's already too easy to grow up, to forget how to play. It's so easy to follow the pipeline of the plot. It's so easy to fast forward through enemy encounters if you're playing on an emulator. It's so easy to pass all the NPCs by because you know where you're supposed to go. But if you pass everyone by, you'd miss this little mouse left behind at the ruins of Leiter's cabin, who says, "The house I was secretly living in has burned down." See, I think both Earthbound and Mother 3 have a unique brand of narrative dissonance. We can argue that Mother 3 limits a player's freedom, but I still think, because of Itoi's direction, the game connects with the player a bit differently. While each player will experience the same narrative, I don't think each player is encouraged to connect with the narrative in the same way. I think this is why the tone is so dynamic in this game, and I also think the Mother series is able to do this so well because of the strength of Itoi's writing and the equal amount of dedication found in the English translations. It's almost as if Itoi is saying, here is an event, here is a character, here is a creature. How do you interpret them? I understand it's not fair for me to always give Itoi a way out by prioritizing player interpretation, but I'm still working on this thesis, okay? Give me some time. We have a whole game to get through here. And look at that, I've meandered again. I don't know what else I want to say about these ideas for now. In a way, I can also argue against myself and the whole take your time argument and say that a track like Hard Rain should push me forward because of its natural momentum and its bass, instead of encouraging me to explore longer because I like listening to the music. So what's the right answer? What's the best way to play? I don't know. I don't think it matters. In my honest opinion, whether you're running to the next objective or just taking your dog for a walk, I think you should at least talk to as many mice as possible. You know, there's that line in Earthbound where someone says, it's important for you to talk to people. Maybe that's all it is. In the hands-off parenting of the Mother games, Shigesato Itoi just wants to make sure we're not going through life too fast, because it really does go so fast. Where in the world is Hinawa, San Diego? Well, that was a longer introduction than I intended. Let's get back to the story. Whether you take a nap as Flint or decide to hit the town, Isaac returns from the mountains to ask if anyone has seen Hinawa and the kids. Isaac, a villager we've heard about but haven't seen yet, is decked out like a lumberjack and seems like a pretty capable guy. I liked how, during the Sunshine Forest fire, Matt was knocking on Isaac's door to either alert him to the fire or ask him for help. So there's a cool payoff payoff in finally getting to meet him. We'll also learn later that Isaac's cabin is full of antidotes, which are imperative to pick up if you want to survive the upcoming encounter in the Sunshine Forest. Isaac also asks you if you've seen Hinawa and the kids yet, and you have an option to say yes or no. I should have experimented to see what Isaac would say if he chose yes, but I forgot to do a save state and I just picked no, so once again, despite all my writing, I'm still not playing around enough in the world of Mother 3. Hopefully I can, crack my shell open a little bit and be a little more willing to explore every dialogue option as I process through the game, but sometimes I just forget, so maybe I struggle to consider even pressing no because Mother 3 doesn't actively encourage me to explore as much. I promise, from here on out, I will play as much as possible. I will press all the buttons that the world of Mother 3 has to offer, or I will die trying. Anyway, Isaac says that he caught a glimpse of Hinawa and the kids while he was out picking mushrooms, but they disappeared from view. Not long after, he heard the roars of a Drago, and not long after that, he heard something worse. Mother 3 isn't exactly sly with its foreshadowing, but I do really like this scene because it works so well on a character level. The characters, and even the player so far, knows Dragos to be peaceful. The intro of the game shows us that Dragos can safely play with children. Even though it's not super surprising for us as the player to learn that Dragos might be dangerous, it's definitely out of the question for Tasmillians. Their happy little world just keeps getting taken apart one piece at a time. And while it isn't hard to guess that Hinawa and the boys aren't having the best time up in the mountains, I still love how the build-up is done. It gets the player asking, what's going to happen next, instead of just, what's happening? I think it's so important for establishing stakes, even when the player already knows something bad is going to happen, and even when the player already knows what that something is going to be. We need stakes, we need tension. Again, we need to ask, what's going to happen next, not just, what's happening. What's even better is that as soon as Flint finishes talking to Isaac, there's no music, only the sound of the falling rain. I love this decision so much, especially in a series that it's known for its amazing music. Mother 3 uses its robust soundtrack to amazing ends again and again, but because this game is a masterpiece, it also knows exactly when to pull back, when to use silence. Silence and rain. Flint's walk back to the house is long. Boney stands outside his doghouse, while the sheep shiver underneath their canopy. There is something here, but it's not Hinawa or the boys. Hinawa's pigeon, with her letter, stands outside the front door. Flint picks up the letter and reads it. The game displays the letter again in its entirety, playing "Letter from You, My Sweet." Which sounds similar to "A Letter to You, Honey." I love these two songs and their subtle, or not so subtle work with tone. Both sound so hopeful, yet also so hollow. When Hinawa originally writes and sends the letter, there's a hint of something bad to come. When Flint reads the letter, we slowly start to realize that the bad has come, and we're living in it. You know, I used to think it was redundant for the game to scroll through the letter twice within such a short time period, but playing Frog by Frog, I feel like I haven't seen Hinawa in years. I can really feel the separation between Flint and his family, and the song for Flint's letter reading is so much sadder and creepier. Honestly, this is is the first time that this scene has been effective for me. I can feel an anxiety building within the plot, and there's a cruel sense of irony watching Flint read this and knowing that Hinawa and the kids should have been home by now. Whether or not it was because of my own tone deafness, in the past I've always overlooked this scene because it just felt too slow. It came too soon. It scrolled through the text so slowly when I had just read it 10 minutes before. Okay, not 10 minutes, but you get my point, like 20 or 30 minutes ago. It's also possible that I associate impatience with this scene because when the Mother 3 fan translation first came out in 2008, I, at age 13, began to frantically record a walkthrough so that I could post it on YouTube. I thought I was sort of doing my part in getting the word out about Mother 3, especially in the times of PK Siege and similar fan efforts, when my greatest wish in life was to have Nintendo of America localize Mother 3. And yes, I did spend the summer of 2007 calling Nintendo of America each morning and asking them to release the game. It's kind of embarrassing, but you know, I was just doing my part. Anyway, because of problems with my recording, I often had to re-record sections of the game, and I also had no idea how save states worked at the time because I was like just getting familiar with different types of emulators and I just didn't quite know how to use them. But anyway, there were a lot of times when I would be recording in Chapter 1 and I had no method of backup saving in place, so I had to start the game over many times to properly record a scene. This meant that I watched Hinawa's letter readings and the lengthy cutscene from later in the chapter way more than I wanted to. And who'd have thought that 12 years later I'd still be making content about Mother 3. I'll talk more about my misadventures with my Mother 3 YouTube channel as we go down the line, but for now, we've got to get back to business. What I will say is that I really liked this scene this time around. Typically, a player can make it to this scene in their very first play session, so encountering it here and actually feeling some emotion is kind of cool. And what can I say? I actually miss Hinawa. It feels like she's been out of the story forever. When I originally wrote this post, I think it had been about a month since I'd even seen her or Lucas and Klaus in the story at all. After reading the letter, there is a brief scene where Isaac and Fuel visit Flint, where they discover that Hinawa and the kids have indeed not returned. Isaac decides to rally the rest of the village to make a search party, while Fuel decides he's going to find them on his own. Even though Fuel ends up going back to Lighter's bedside for now, I love this small character moment. I think Fuel is a refreshing character for me because in so many RPGs, if you're not like the chosen kid or any of the chosen kids cohort, there's not much you get to do in the story. But Fuel says screw that and does just about whatever he can to get involved in the plot. I've also never really thought about how Flint saved Lighter's son, and now Lighter's son wants to help Flint find his wife and kids. If not for Flint, Fuel would probably be dead right now. Flint was able to do what no one else in the village could when he saved Fuel and Lighter's lives. Now, it's Tasmali's turn to step up and help Flint. And at the very least, Fuel's a good kid. In a different version of Mother 3, maybe he sticks around even longer and becomes a permanent party member. He's definitely brave enough, but he's not as brave as a very, very special character. A character so special and so loyal that I'm going to give him his own section in this post. That character is none other than the best character in the game. This is going to sound a little silly, but I honestly get chills every time Flint steps outside, hard rain kicks in, and Boney starts to bark, alerting Flint that he wants to help. Something about the way the track starts and something about the way the bark is timed with the scene. It's just that masterpiece level shit. Like I said last time, I've always thought Mother 3 would work really well as an animated feature. And this is one of those scenes, one of those moments where the music, the sound effects, the characters, the story, everything just comes together so well. If you haven't replayed this game in a while, or if you've never played this game, you're seriously in for a treat so many times during Chapter 1. So many moments really feel inspired, and this is the chapter where Mother 3, in my opinion, is at its most cinematic. You can tell that this writing and these characters sat around in Itoi's head for years. But we're here to talk about the best character of the game, who has just graced us with a bark. Boney doesn't need words to show his brilliance, and still he is able to say so much through just a simple bark. To the untrained ear, Boney said, "Woof woof." But as a master in the language of dogs, I can tell you that Boney really said, "Please take me with you. I'm sure I'll be helpful. If you haven't read or listened to post number 1, then I'll catch you up to speed. I named Boney after one of my own dogs, Cole, who passed away last January. While I don't always name my characters in Mother games after people I know, like Itoy suggests, I always name Boney after my own dog. I think Boney is such a fun, special character, and honestly, I do feel a connection with my old dog when I play Mother 3, even though he's gone now. Like my above fawning over this scene, I understand if this next thought comes off as a little bit silly to you, or even as a little self-important, but every time the game asks me, take Cole with you? Yes or no? I enthusiastically press yes. Of course, every time I would press yes. When you lose a dear dog, when you lose a pet that has been a family member to you, you would always say yes to just one more walk. And even though earlier in this very post I promised I would start exploring Mother 3's dialogue options more, I simply do not have it in my heart to say no to Boney. I just wouldn't be able to take it. I would not be able to say no to this question. When the game asks me, take Cole with you, I will always say yes. And I don't care what else Mother 3 has to offer behind that dialogue option for no. I will just never press it. There's also a really funny joke where usually Boney will bark or say woof or something, and then in parentheses it says what he was actually saying. But when you add him to your party, he says woof woof, and then in the parentheses it just says woof woof. I just think that's so funny. But yes, Boney is my favorite party member, so prepare yourself for this blog to also become the official Boney fan club. Maybe Boney is the reason I decided to walk around for a while instead of just getting back to the plot. Boney actually doesn't stick around with you for the remainder of Chapter 1, so I wanted to get the most out of the time that I had with him. And just look at Boney. If you're sitting at your computer right now, or if you're sitting at work right now, just Google Boney, Boney Mother 3, and just look at some pictures of him. He's just so cute. As for practical reasons to like Boney as a party member, I mean, he doesn't pack the strongest punch of the bunch, but he almost always attacks first, which is nice if you need to use an item or quickly heal someone. He can also sniff enemies, which reveals their weaknesses if they have any. Something I haven't talked about yet is that each character has an instrument that plays when they attack an enemy. Stringing together combo hits allows each instrument to complete a short tune of some kind. And as you'll know now by playing through Chapter 1, Flint's instrument is a saxophone, but Boney's is just his bark. I've always thought it was like super cute when he just barks out those little melodies. Anyway, clearly I need to get back on track, so I'll share one more very important thing here. I was able to capture an important image which I think ties together so many themes and ideas in Chapter 1. It took me a couple times to get the screen cap just right, but it was worth it in the end. And the image is Boney in the hot springs. Look at that little amazing guy poking his head out above the water. He's just so cute. Anyway, I think that's been enough appreciation for now, so let's move on. I met a new Tasmanian this time, Isaac, but I think it's about time we checked in with all the other Tasmanians that we've already met. There are so many of them after all. Some might say there are 2 million Tasmanians. I'd love to narrate more of my walk with Boney, but there's not much else to say. We walked around and saw the sights. I found a gift box on the beach full of mushrooms, which was definitely not suspicious at all. More importantly than all of this, the Tasmanians are out tonight. Just because the rain extinguished the fire doesn't mean Tasmani's problems have vanished. The night is young, folks, and Hinawa and the boys are still out there somewhere. Last post, I talked about how, in Chapter 1, we play as both Flint and Tasmali in a way, because so many villagers involve themselves in the conflict. I really can't think of many other times I've played a JRPG where I felt this connected to the NPCs. I felt that their engagement in the story wasn't arbitrary. Some games accomplish feelings similar to this by having a large cast of characters, like Final Fantasy VI or Fire Emblem, but not many have brought the minor characters to such an active role. Tasmanians even stand close to enemies out in the forest. we can assume that a villager or two has had to fight off a snake just like Flint has. I guess what I'm getting at here is that Mother 3 really brings the villagers to life in more ways than one, and I just think it's so cool that there are actually NPCs out here in the same area where the player is controlling the protagonists. It's just not something you see very often. And characters like Abby even sustain some injuries during this portion of the game, so again, we can assume that while the player has random encounters of their own, maybe the NPCs are also having battles with the enemies. It's just nice to know that Tazmily can rally itself to a good cause, even in the middle of the night, even in the middle of a storm. Everyone is, in a way, also repaying Flint for the amazing deed he just performed. Tazmily's death toll is still at 0, and everyone would like to keep it that way. Richie and Nicole, 2 children in town, are once again out in the square, while Thomas runs circles around the well, broadcasting Tazmily's state of affairs. I will always love Thomas's running animations. It is the crown jewel in Mother 3's accomplishments and sprite design. "This is bad, real bad," Thomas says. "Hinawa and the kids still aren't back." This line from Thomas always cracks me up for some reason. It feels like the Mother 3 show has just come back from a commercial break, so Thomas is tuning the viewer in on the main conflict. I also love this because I can't tell if Thomas is trying to rally any remaining villagers by making a ruckus in town square, or if he's just so panicked that all he can do is run in circles, which is exactly what I mean when I say that Mother 3 develops and portrays its characters in such a fun way. Sure, we don't know anything like deep or complex about Thomas, but we know he is both bumbling and helpful, and here he is doing a bumbling, helpful thing. Thomas is, as usual, stepping up in his own way, and I like that. In a frog-by-frog sense of things, it's nice that an NPC like Thomas is, again, bringing us back to the action. If you got to the last save frog and put the game down for like a week or two, it's kind of nice to have an NPC who says, "Hey, things are pretty bad. Hinawa and the kids still aren't back." And then you can sit there like, oh yeah, that's what was going on. Last time I wrote about Thomas's clothes, I guess I had missed the point that he's supposed to be like the town fireman, and that he's wearing an old schoolish firefighter getup, which is also a bit hilarious given his personality and general disposition. I guess I always interpreted his role in Tazmily as a sometimes helpful guy who was able to rally people together because he's so anxious and loud. Yet maybe he didn't always bring the most to the table when it came to actually helping out. Every town needs its crier. I just didn't know he was the resident firefighter as well, but then again, in a place like Tazmily where nothing goes wrong, Thomas was probably an amazing firefighter because he never actually had to do anything. And hey, it actually was Thomas who drug lighter out of the forest while it was still on fire. That counts for something. A lot of people like to make fun of Thomas, but I'll always give him credit for that one act of heroism. Speaking of Tazmily's greatest, I also like how, this time around, Jackie decided to join the efforts. When I checked in at the Yado Inn, Betsy informed me that Jackie and Tessie had gone out to look for Hinawa and the boys. She even apologized for not going out as well, but someone had to stay behind to look after everything. Can we call Tazmily a utopia? It's at least something close. Everyone in town can put their efforts together toward a common good, and even the people who can't have a decently good reason as to why not. Compare this to Earthbound's intro, where just after finishing the game's first dungeon, Ness battles local law enforcement to remove a roadblock, completely alone. Speaking of community efforts, I've always enjoyed the Yado Inn's signage, which says, "Jackie's Yado Inn, we won't over-pamper you here." Although that may be trumped by Thomas's Bazaar, which says, "We got the goods." Though I've gotta say, the best marketing of the day goes to the advice-giving Sparrow, who drew me in with a classic sales tactic. See, the Sparrow sets it up with an everyday scenario. During battle, the Sparrow says, it's not uncommon to forget what exactly each item does, right? And I'm thinking to myself, great, another one of these chatty Sparrows who explains basic concepts that most players already know. I'm just gonna hit A as fast as I can and see if there's a haiku somewhere in here. But then the Sparrow hits you with, has this ever happened to you? And I think, you know what? This has happened to me. And the next thing I knew, I was learning all about how to check items and their various effects during battle, which is something I've never bothered to do before. Usually I just go off of memory, and if I'm wrong, I tell myself I'll remember next time. But do I? Do I remember next time? Anyway, weird digression here. Back to the Yado Inn. If you thought maybe Betsy was lying to you and just didn't want to get rained on, don't forget that Lighter still rests in one of the back rooms, recovering from his wounds. He doesn't even really know what's going on yet, which is probably for the best. Lou, along with Bud, tells Flint that Leiter would probably get out of bed and join the search efforts right away if he caught wind of what was going on. So they've decided to watch over him and make sure he doesn't do anything brash. Meanwhile, Bud says that everything is pitch black and that even Flint is pitch black. Again, we have this repetition of pitch black. Have I been mixing up these two's names while writing about them? I apologize if so. And similar to discovering that Thomas is supposed to be a firefighter, I also recently discovered that Lou and Bud are named after Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, a decision the translation team made to mirror the duo's Japanese names, which are themselves a reference to a comedic duo from Japan. Greg Lesko's post details many of the naming decisions for the Mother 3 translation patch, and I also plan to dive into Tomato's notes on the projects, which I read some years back. I love discovering and sharing details like this because it's basically a double down on Mother magic. Mother 3 is already a labor of imagination and love, and so too is the fan translation. Of course, I'm only capable of experiencing Mother games in English because I can't read Japanese, but I've always at least had the feeling that Mother 3's translation and Nintendo of America's Earthbound localization goes to truly amazing extents to preserve Itoi's writing style, especially his wit and sense of humor. I plan to reference Tomato's notes and probably also Tomato's amazing book on Earthbound's localization much more moving forward. I recently ordered Legends of Localization 2, Earthbound, and the Mother 3 Handbook, both of which I've wanted for years, so I'm pretty excited to read them. As a brief insert here, I will say something I was not aware of at the time of writing this original post, way back in 2020, was that Tomato actually has his own gripes with the Mother 3 fan translation, and at times he thinks they actually did not preserve Itoi's original intent, or at least Itoi's original writing style, as loyally as maybe they could have. So I just think that's kind of an interesting point, that even though the Mother 3 fan translation does a lot of interesting stuff, like the naming of Bud and Lou, and plenty of creative things like the naming of the chimeras, there are certainly still points where they were not able to effectively bridge the gap between English and Itoi's original intent. Anyway, if we want to get super literary with the repetition of pitch black and how everyone keeps pointing out that Flint himself was pitch black, I'd say things don't exactly bode well for Flint. A pitch black repetition for a simple, nearly utopian town is already enough bad news, but for Flint to have been, in a way, branded by it, well, that isn't exactly good either. Okay, back to the Tasmillians. There's still a million to talk about, including a new Tasmillian, Wes, who Jonelle tells to stay behind because he's too old to help. Even Tasmilly occasionally doubts its elders, but Wes insists that he is more powerful than anyone knows. I have a lot to say about Wes, but he'll have his time to shine, so for now, we'll leave him here in the rain. All I will say, though, is that later in the game, Tasmilly's elderly population doesn't exactly receive much respect when the town eventually finds modernization, and even here we're seeing the seeds of how the town doesn't see old people as having that much agency or even strength. Jonelle, Tasmilly's man of faith, also decided to aid in the search efforts. He tells Flint that he has been blessed with true friends, an entire village willing to help him, and in a way, that is true happiness. I don't disagree, and it's a sweet, insightful thing to say, but I wonder how Jonelle would feel if the script were flipped and it were his wife and kids who were still missing. I'm not trying to nitpick Jonelle's words or anything, but I also think it's hard to make statements like that when, again, Tasmilly has never really known trouble until tonight. It's almost like Jonelle has already sensed the worst, and so decides to prep Flint for what's to come. Hey Flint, even if everything goes wrong, you still have us, is basically what he's saying. I'd say I'm being too cynical, but I still believe there are little beautiful things all over the place, so I'm gonna give myself a pass here. For example, even though I didn't get the best screen cap of it, the windows of the prayer sanctuary actually portray the rain falling outside. It's a super small detail, but it's there, and I think it's super cool. Though the list of new Tasmillians doesn't stop at the stalwart Wes, also new to the table are Paul and Linda, a couple who have joined the search party efforts. I've always assumed their names are meant as a reference to Paul and Linda McCartney, though I'm not sure if the Mother 3 fan translation team made the decision or if their names are translated literally that way. Shigesato Itoi is often cited as a Beatles fan, and he himself said that John Lennon's song Mother is one of his inspirations for the name of the Mother series. Though it should be noted that this song is not the definitive reason for the name, and Itoi considers and encourages the series title to be open for fan interpretation. Basically, Itoi and Lennon both grew up in homes without fathers, and Lennon's style of singing on this track, especially his delivery of the word mother, inspired such strong emotion in Itoi that he wanted to communicate something similar to players. I think this is one of the reasons I admire Shigesato Itoi so much. He seems to pull from such varied, disparate ideas when making his games, yet they all spiral out from that same emotional center, and they're all pretty much just things he finds interesting. I've also always been fascinated at how some of Itoi's darker, more complex emotions, like his fatherless childhood or his traumatic experience at a movie theater, influence his decision-making as a creator. For example, and most obviously, the protagonists of the first two Mother games only interact with their fathers over the phone, which, though inspired by his own father's absence and his experience raising his own daughter, Itoi manages to spin this positively when he relates parental absence to the success of fictional characters like Pippi Longstocking. As for the experience in the movie theater, we'll talk about that some other time. It's almost like Itoi takes a negative memory or emotion, or a complicated memory or emotion, and works with it in the Mother series, then processing it in a more positive or at least cathartic way. As I've said before, I'm not trying to overanalyze Itoi or pretend that I'm the ideal player or thinker when it comes to his work, but I have fun considering stuff like this. One of the most interesting things in Itoi's life, I think, is his relation with parenthood, both from his own childhood and his own experience as a parent. It seems like he has complex thoughts and emotions and just some conflicting ideas about the role of a parent in the life of a child, and I love how they seem to be working themselves out on screen in the Mother games. And again, this is all just my interpretation. I'm not trying to impose these ideas or comment definitively on Itoi and his intentions for the Mother games. Remember what we talked about in Frog number 1. Itoi, in a way, wants players to connect to Mother in whatever way they want. Okay, that might be the digression of the day. Anyway, here's Paul, who says, "I don't like it. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop," referring to the rain. And here's Linda, who says Hinawa promised to teach her how to make cabbage. I love how Hinawa's cabbage recipe is famous all over town. I mean, it's not exactly a difficult vegetable to cook. I always forget that I made my favorite food cabbage when I read this stuff. Even Butch wants some cabbage. Hinawa's amazing cabbage seems to be the only thing on everyone's minds during a catastrophe. It must be pretty damn good. "Let's hurry," Butch says, "and find Hinawa so she can make us some of her special cabbage." I know I've said this before, but sometimes in the ultra customization age of RPGs, I appreciate something as simple as the player's favorite food getting repeated on occasion. It's not much, but it's still kinda sweet. Don't get me wrong, I love the amount of customization available to players nowadays, but because it's becoming more and more common and almost becoming a given, it can be refreshing in a way to play a simpler RPG, where player decisions act a little bit like decorations or ornaments. However, I can also see how this might not matter much to some players. I was recently watching a video where someone criticized Fire Emblem Three Houses for being full of arbitrary decision-making, and I understood where they were coming from. If you're going to give the player a choice, make it impactful, make it matter. Don't just make it something floating away in the wind. But I think the Mother games are going for something a little bit different here. I don't think they're trying to trick you as far as how important your own contribution is. It's not so much about the customized experience, but more for players to have opportunities to make their mark on the game, and so participate in the game that much more. I think Itoi's aim to make cinematic experiences is definitely something we see more and more of in contemporary video games, and something that, in some ways for Itoi, was ultimately not realized due to Earthbound 64's cancellation. However, I think Itoi more so wanted to recreate the feeling of a great movie through the medium of video games. His aims were maybe not so much to be literally cinematic at all times, like as if we're seeing things through a camera's lens, but more to create that feeling of sitting in a movie theater and having your heart swoon through the highs and lows of a great film. Or decide what he means for yourself. Here's the exact quote I'm thinking of. For me, I'm trying to create an experience that, while being a game, is like a movie. The feeling you get from renting a good movie from a rental store. If a normal workaday office lady plays Mother and finishes it, she should have that same wistful feeling of, aw, it's over. I can totally see why, especially in the first two Mother games, Itoi would encourage players to name the main cast after themselves and their own family and friends. The player gets to insert themselves into a cinematic experience that is unique to video games. Mother 3 is by far the most literally cinematic of the trilogy, so I'd be interested to know more about Itoi's feelings towards Mother 3 nowadays. Maybe like how it has aged in his opinion. I told you this post was going to meander, but I really need to focus here. I think it's because I haven't saved in so long. Where is a frog? I need to tell it my memories before I lose my freaking mind. And people say Mother 3 is linear. I can't even stay on track in Chapter 1. Oh, by the way, this is what Boney looks like in battle. Look at him, isn't he so cute? I love how he pops up from below the battle window and his tongue is sticking out. What a perfect little dog. I did forget to bring up Matt, who reveals himself more and more as the town's resident drunk. He's still well-meaning, but a little bit sloppy. I know it's been a long night for everybody, but I think it's time to turn it in, Matt, old buddy. Maybe just lay down and take it easy. Though I will add here, if you say no to taking Boney with you, it actually is Matt who brings him into the forest later. It's a cool little character detail that you otherwise completely miss out on if you accept Boney from the get-go, and it's also a character detail that I will never experience in my life because I literally do not have it in my heart to say no to Boney. But hey, I'd still recruit Matt into my party if I could. I bet he's good in a brawl. He put up a great fight against Isaac's door earlier tonight, which is now unlocked, so I'm sure Matt had something to do with that. He beat that door into submission. It's also a good idea to stop by Isaac's place, because he has a box full of antidotes on his kitchen table. In the next area of the Sunshine Forest, mighty bitey snakes slither through the wreckage, and it's bad news if they manage to poison you. It could be random, but I feel like the snakes tend to go for Boney a lot, which can become tricky because his health is much lower than Flint's. By the end of the session, I was out of antidotes, but I did go out of my way to fight a good amount of enemies. What can I say? I was taking my time. I was having some fun. However, I think my favorite NPC interaction of the day goes to Lisa, one of the gossiping women, who tells Flint that Hinawa is responsible, but Flint is careless, so he probably forgot to bring antidotes with him into the forest. I love this because it's a perfect blend of an NPC giving guidance to the player and an NPC staying true to their character. Lisa would low-key talk smack on Flint if she ran into him in the forest. That's what makes the gossiping women so great. It's almost like the blatant advice of the NPCs early on could be a way to incentivize the players to talk to everyone, only for the purpose of changing that receiving advice to learning about a character's personality. You know, interactions like this make me soften up more to Mapsin all the time, but you see what I'm saying here, right? Like, yes, if this was another game, Lisa would probably just say something like, hey, you brought antidotes with you, right? And then a player would be like, oh shit, I gotta run back to Isaac's and grab an antidote. Boney's poisoned right now. But Mother 3 goes that extra step where you get that advice from Lisa, and you also get that characterization for both Lisa and Flint through just one offhanded comment. Anyway, speaking of poison, the new enemy of the day is the aforementioned mighty bitey snake, which I enjoy fighting a lot solely because their battle theme is bothersome, guys. I just love that song. I could listen to it forever. Also, as a translation trivia fact, the localization of this enemy was challenging. Greg Lisko says this: one enemy that I'm not really satisfied with the name of in either my own stuff or the final translation patch was the bitey snake, which I'd translated as snake that might bite. Both of these have issues in terms of accuracy of the translation, though given the actual picture of the bitey snake, that seems almost fine. The issue is that the name translates most accurately to something like a snake that will bite when it's time to bite, that bites when the situation calls for it, or something equally unwieldy to express in English. That one was frankly a mess, and I can't really think of anything that would have worked better than Tomato's mighty bitey snake. I find that kind of stuff super interesting. I guess it's possible that Nintendo of America may someday localize this game, but I've decided to quit hoping for that. And anyway, I think that Tomato's translation is going to be forever tied to the history of Mother 3 and the history of fan projects in general, and I know I speak for a lot of fans when I say that the translation is dear to my heart. I mean, obviously I can't experience the game any other way, but the fact that I can play it in English at all is still cool to me to this day, and I downloaded the translation on the first day it came out. I can still remember the day when the fan translation went live and became available for download. I'd also be interested to know Tomato's opinion on the Mighty Bitey Snake. I can only imagine that naming all of the enemies was a challenging and inspiring and hopefully fun process. Also, I always crack up when accompanying enemies are referenced as part of a cohort. I don't know why, that just always brings a smile to my face. This is probably going to be the longest edition of 1,000,000 Tasmillions ever at this rate. I still haven't even introduced all the new folks. There's also Reggie, a Tasmillion who never falters, even when the tides of change overtake the town. Reggie is in touch with the spiritual side of human nature and follows his intuition. He's a significant villager because, like I said, he's one of the only ones who doesn't totally change as time goes on. But I'll get more to that as it comes around. If I'm going to spend so much time talking about things that Mother 3 does right, I should spend some time here talking about things that Mother 3 does wrong, or at least some character decisions that were tone deaf in 2006 and have obviously aged poorly. I wasn't sure initially how to approach writing about Reggie. I wanted to point out his harmfully stereotypical design, which is itself part of a game where nearly all of the major and minor characters are white. Also, I've noted before that Tasmily has a varied collection of styles, yet it is the town's singular black character who is stereotyped. Yes, Itoi is a thoughtful writer and Mother 3 is a thoughtful game, but neither are perfect, and I can't write a blog about appreciating Mother 3 without acknowledging at least some of its flaws. More importantly, around the time I wrote this blog post originally, I encountered a tweet about blackface within Japanese culture. When I learned that this was such a persistent issue in Japan, for me, Reggie's design then failed doubly, both within the context of its own game and in its complicity with Japan's own issues with racism and stereotypes, which stings even more, considering Mother 3's consistent thematic urge for people to come together. To what extent can we truly trust a game's ethical signaling if it fails in this most blatant regard? Well, I'm not here to make up your mind for you, and I know that some people don't even like when conversations like this come into gaming, but I believe that the Mother community is good and always getting better about having these conversations in the first place. If you have thoughts about Reggie or about his representation in Mother 3, please write to me. Tell me what you think, tell me how I can further expand my worldview, or tell me what I have failed to address as a writer. It's not my goal to give you a conclusive way to think about Mother 3, but rather to make as much room as possible for people to critique and assess the game for themselves. Like I said, I know some people don't like conversations like this, but when I notice something, I'm going to write about it. I'm not going to ignore something while I'm playing Mother 3 just because I think it could be an uncomfortable or tricky topic for some people. And again, there may be some of you out there who find no issue with Reggie's design or characterization, and if you're one of these people, let me know in the comments below. We can talk about this. You can tell me what you think. I'm not bringing this up to be the end-all be-all for this particular character. And like I said, there is more to come with Reggie. I do legitimately enjoy him as a character, and I really enjoy what he offers as a character in Chapter 4 specifically. I think he has a unique arc for a Tasmillion, and I'm excited to see where it goes. On to the next Tasmillion, a close second for my favorite NPC interaction of the day, comes from Abbott and Abby, who, as usual, are doing their best, but not without a few hiccups. First, there's Abbott, who warns Flint not to lose his footing because the ground is slick, but then there's Abby, not far away, who says, "I slipped and fell just a minute ago, but I'm okay." I appreciate the efforts of all Tasmillions equally, but these two and their misadventures are so endearing. I love how, probably minutes after being attacked by the flying mouse, Abby is all like, "Yes, great description, honey," as Abbott fumbles out a brief sketch of the creature. It helps to relieve some of the tension. Also, did I mention it's awesome to be listening to Hard Rain this entire time? But I don't know, it's just kind of comforting to me that other Tasmillions are sustaining injuries. Flint isn't the only one out here risking his neck. Also, I don't want to screen cap and share literally every line of dialogue in the game, because that would get way too tedious, but if you ever ask yourself, why does he go through so many of the NPCs? The answer is that I seriously have so much fun doing it. don't forget the wise words from Earthbound. It's important for you to talk to people. And I really do enjoy seeing what each villager is up to and what their take on everything is. But if you ever don't see me mention your favorite NPC, just know that I probably have a screenshot of them somewhere in my computer, but couldn't really find much to say about it. Sort of like Nan and Biff, who just remark on the circumstances in a way that isn't totally original. But then there's Jill, who represents the gossiping woman perfectly by throwing some shade at Lucas of all people, a currently missing and possibly dead child. But Lucas is a crybaby, she says, so I bet he's probably in tears by now. I know she doesn't mean it maliciously, or at least I don't think she does. It's just calling Lucas a crybaby like everybody else. I think she means it in a caring way, as if to say that poor kid is probably a wreck. But man, I wish people would lay off of Lucas sometimes. And if you thought we were done meeting new faces, you were wrong. Just up ahead, Bateau, a spectacled blonde man, has made it pretty far into the forest. He's even hanging around Bronson, so he's alright with me. Bateau's first line of dialogue, though, isn't exactly helpful. After making it through the newly accessible area of the Sunshine Forest, densely populated with poisonous snakes, Flint and Boney catch some bad news. A tree has been snapped in two, but it doesn't look like lightning did it. There are claw marks on the ground, and just past the tree is Alex's house, where Hinawa and the kids should have departed from. Actually, Bateau says, it looks like someone went and snapped these in half. Also, does anyone else think Bateau kind of looks like Picky from Earthbound? If Flint, or even the player, was still holding on to hope that the Dragos have remained peaceful, that hope starts to slip away right here, at least a little bit. Hinawa and the boys are in serious trouble. This roadblock is the last thing Tasmily needs right now. Before I transition to the end of this post, I think I hear a frog hopping somewhere around here, I want to share two more tidbits. First, there's Bud and Lou, who depart from the Yaddo Inn and show up in the forest, and they have some bits to run. Like I've mentioned before, every time these two tell a joke, the game plays a little chime, and Lou hits Bud in the chest. Of the two jokes they can tell at this part of the game, I love how one of them involves Bud's metaphysical connection with the Game Boy Advance's A button. If you examine something with A, and there is nothing notable about it, the game displays the text, "No problem here." Bud, after saying that Hinawa and the kids haven't been found, will say, "There's no problem here." And the next time the player hits A, Lou responds, "The fact that we haven't found them is a pretty huge problem if you ask me." I don't know, I just think that's kind of a funny little fourth wall breaking joke. Second, Mike, Tasmely's resident old kook, finds himself remarkably far into the forest. I just love that Mike thinks Lucas and Klaus are going to want some of his slightly unclean cookies. It's already funny that he acknowledges that his cookies are, for some reason, not clean. And it's even a little more endearing how he's just holding on to hope that the kids are going to want them. But hey, Mike can hold on to whatever hope he wants. We're gonna need all the hope we can get. Just beyond the trees. Like I said, the scene at the trees is bad news. Bronson, Bateau, Jackie, and Tessie look at the trees with a mix of awe and fear. Bateau tries to lighten the tension a little bit, but I'll go to Bud and Lou when I need that. Though I gotta admit, it is pretty funny that Bateau says, "No, it wasn't me," when he says that whatever broke the trees wasn't human. But Tasmily has a habit of drumming up heroes when they need them, and though likely walking on a horribly injured leg, who would enter the forest but Lighter himself, ready to help out once again? "Don't treat me like some injured clod," he says. Like I've mentioned a few times now, these are the moments where Chapter 1 feels like playing as a community, as opposed to just playing as Flint. You could argue that Lighter and Bronson moving the debris is like an arbitrary obstacle, an invisible wall, so that Flint encounters the reconstructed caribou, especially because the player doesn't do anything to aid the removal of the trees. But in my opinion, it's just another episode in the wonderful saga of Tasmilians helping each other out. Let's not forget Bud's amazing haiku, helping others out, being helped out by others, helping others out. I also just love the visual designs of the villagers so much that, as always, I simply enjoy seeing all their different little animations, like when Lighter and Isaac begin to work on the debris. If there were a positive version of nitpicking, you could accuse me of doing that exact thing on this blog. Instead of finding every little thing to hate, I'm finding every little thing to love. And I'm okay with that. Like I said, it's been so long since I've gotten to take my time with Mother 3. I started to feel catapulted from one frog to the next. So because I was able to take my time with this gameplay session, I also wanted to take my time with this post. And oh my god, the YouTube version of this, which I am recording right now, I can only imagine is going to be like an hour long. Anyway, after the Tasmanians split up, we finally encounter the game's next save frog. He's hanging out near Jackie and Tessie, not far from the broken trees. You know, this frog reminds me of something, but I'm gonna save it for next time. This has been a long post, and if you're still here, thanks for sticking around. If you're not here, come back sometime. We can go see what Jackie's talking about. The last thing I'll say today is that I really love the Flint and Boney combo. I know I've been raving on Boney for this entire frog, but I especially enjoy the time we spend just with these two in Chapter 1. It doesn't go on for much longer, but in my memory, I feel like I played as Flint and Boney for forever. I think I felt that way because of how often I had to re-record Chapter 1 in my old Mother 3 walkthrough, but like I said, that's a story for another time. Flint and Boney are looking for their other family members. Flint and Boney look cool together. What else is there to say? I guess I'm just a sucker for protagonist and their dog stories. I love seeing Flint and Boney team up and take down snakes and yeah monsters. I love seeing Flint and Boney team up in general. I mean, I love the main party that you use in the second half of the game, but I'll always enjoy chapters 1 through 3 for their mixes and matches of different party members. Boney has an amazing way of making me feel less alone while playing as Flint, and I think that's by design. I guess it's just interesting that in my mind, I associate Flint and Boney as such an extremely significant party composition in the game, but their pairing is truly so brief. I guess that just means these two make a truly excellent team. The last thing I'll say about Flint and Boney is that my interpretation of them as some kind of dynamic duo probably comes more from the Earthbound 64 trailer, where Boney howls into the night as Flint stands by his side. Well, I think that's it for now, folks. Like the mouse who lost his house, I think it's time for me to hit the road.